traveling too. There's the jokes at the barber, told by Cleve from the hardware, about the stories that always make the news. Our town, wherever I may roam, I'll always have a place that I call home. Our town is very plain to see. There'll always be a part of you in me.
The history of Glengarry, located halfway between the St. Lawrence and the Ottawa rivers, connects to the earliest settlements of our country. The people of this area, mainly of Scottish and French descent, have contributed in many ways to the development of Canada.
Hello, I'm Barry Penhale. When I come here to St. Raffles, I can't help but be reminded of those 500 Gaelic-speaking Highland Scots who settled here. Much of the early leadership in Glengarry was furnished by their own parish priest, the Reverend Father Alexander MacDonnell, who was a friend to Protestants and Catholics alike. The settlers of MacDonnell's day brought very little to these parts, but in Alexandria and throughout Glengarry, they left in games, in music, and politics a style unmistakably their own.
The story of Glengarry begins with the immigration of Scottish Highlanders who were forced to leave their homeland. Father Alexander MacDonnell, while serving as a missionary priest in the Scottish Highlands, was a witness to the misery of his parishioners, caused by the policy of the clearances, whereby greedy landlords expelled their tenants to free the land for sheep farming. Father Alex, or the Big Bishop as he was later to be called, believed they could find a new life in Canada. Led by Father Alex, they arrived in 1786 with great expectations to the district of Glengarry. In the heart of this region, a lone piper played an ancient tune which had inspired their forefathers to great deeds. Their spirits rose, their courage and determination strengthened their resolve, and they transformed the forest into rich farmland. These early settlers formed the parish of St. Raffles, until 1833 the only congregation in Glengarry County. Nearly 150 years later, in 1970, their impressive church was destroyed by fire. It stands today as one of the few North American equivalents of the monastic ruins of the Old World. In 1819, MacDonnell purchased land roughly 20 miles away to build a grist mill. The hamlet of Priest Mill gradually developed. As a result of the new community's petition, the parish of St. Finans was soon established. Appointed as the first bishop of Upper Canada, he was transferred to Kingston and the ownership of the mill changed hands. As a tribute to him, the Glengarrians named the town Alexandria. In 1844, Donald Sandfield MacDonald came to town, and for the next 40 years, the history of Alexandria is largely the history of this Glengarry native. His skill as an entrepreneur was demonstrated when he hosted a great ball and supper to mark the opening of Alexandria's new steam-powered mill. Trainloads from Montreal arrived to celebrate the event. Besides serving in local Glengarry politics in a number of offices, Sandfield became Postmaster General of Canada and Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. Business life of Alexandria centered around the grist mill until the building of the Canadian Atlantic Railway in 1882. It established a link between Montreal and Ottawa. Although the railway exposed the mills to outside competition, it also produced transportation for locally produced goods. In the late 1800s, French Canadians from the neighboring cantons in Quebec were imported to work in the bush and in the mills. They became an important element in the new industries and in the life of Alexandria. Two large wood product manufacturers gave new economic life to the community. Jacob Schell arrived from Woodstock in 1882, and in less than a decade he owned cheese box factories, machine shops, and lumbering interests. The largest firm ever to operate in Alexandria was the Monroe and McIntosh Company, widely known as M&M. The carriage works began in 1871 as a humble blacksmith shop run by Hugh Monroe. He hired his cousin, John D. McIntosh, to do the woodwork in repairing vehicles and farm implements. During slack periods, they built a few carriages and sleighs. Monroe became a super salesman. McIntosh, an efficient and imaginative manager. The plant developed one of the earliest forms of assembly line production. This, coupled with the excellent hardwood forests of Glengarry, assured the prosperity of M&M. "300 workmen were employed to produce over 150 varieties of sleighs and buggies. A finished carriage was turned out every 15 minutes for shipments across Canada, to the United States, and around the world." In the mid-1800s, almost every Canadian town had at least one carriage maker. In Alexandria's case, the Monroe and McIntosh Company ranked in size and output among the three largest in the country. Although it never made the transition to gasoline-powered vehicles, it met the huge demands of the time with exceptional flair and expertise. Changing times brought an end to the great age of carriage makers, but Alexandria is still the home of the buggy from Glengarry. Alexandria today is an active community serving a large population of the surrounding county. The town's main street showcases its Scottish and French traditions, while its people express a love and warmth of community. The oldest continuing business in town is the Melange and Savory Meat Market, begun in 1905, and still a family business run by the sons of the original owner. Down the street, they say if you haven't heard it at Patty McDonald's barber shop, it's only a rumor.
barber shops used to be a good place to stop in and get the news and swap stories and tell. But they still come in here, and I believe Angus Hoy here was the one that dealt with the Senate. They all just come in. Gabe comes in, Benny comes in. People go by and they say, well, Jerry's got quite a gang today. But somebody will say, there's nobody waiting so we can go and get a haircut. So
Angus might call it the Senate. Father Charlie Goetze used to call it the college. No matter what you call it, we always get blamed for everything around town in any event. And the sharpest thing I can tell you is that we've been responsible for nothing.
oh, that's
I'm
right.
sure of that.
Yeah.
Except Jerry.
The architecture of Alexandria reflects a wide range of style and taste and gives added character to the town. A number of houses were built by John Chisholm, the contractor and builder of St. Finan's Cathedral. He was aptly nicknamed Steeple Chisholm because of his penchant for building steeples. A local story concerns the M&M partner who used his ingenuity to run pipelines from the boiler of their nearby plant to provide his own house with steam heat.
During the 12 years that I worked at the Carriage Works, it was in the years of the prime of that company. I remember our shipping department shipped in 1 year's time 8,000 vehicles. Of course, that includes buggies and cutters.
Well, there was no elevators then. Everything was done by hand. You climbed the stairs and put the lumber on your shoulder. I started on at 8 cents an hour. We worked hard, and of course we paid a lot too. And as long as your father was there hired, well, they wouldn't fire you unless you took a Saturday off. If you did, you were fired. No Saturdays off.
In their M&M buggy, Oakley Bush and his pal Barney revisit the older residential area.
I was born in Alexandria. I've worked in a grocery store for my sister. I was manager. I worked for 40 years. I think Alexandria is great. All the people really encourage the stores in town, so that's why we could keep it up.
St. Paul Street shows the strong influence of the Roman Catholic Church in Alexandria. The present St. Finan's was built in 1833 and became a cathedral in 1890. Across from St. Finan's is the Bishop's Palace. In 1909, Sacré-Cœur became the parish for the French-speaking population of Alexandria. In the 1930s, the parishioners dug out a basement for the church with picks, shovels, and wheelbarrows, and turned the occasion into a picnic. Located nearby at Maxville is one of North America's largest annual Highland gatherings, the Glengarry Highland Games, a long-standing celebration of the colorful Scottish heritage. The Games originated in 1948 and presently attract crowds of 25,000 and more. Among the people attracted to the games are those from the MacDonald clan. Pipe Major J.T. Mackenzie had a long career playing pipe music before he decided to settle in Alexandria.
rated among the leaders in North America. And this is the 38th anniversary come up on August the 3rd. And we've got some younger blood and the future as far as the game is concerned. When they came in from Scotland, they didn't, they just had what they could take with them. But blacksmiths made hammers, and it wasn't hard to cut a cable. There was all kinds of timber. And the upshot of those crossroad meetings, farm areas, was Big Rory McLennan winning the World Championship, the hammer throw in Toronto in 1865. So that was the beginning. And they go all the way down the line, and today the younger generation are just falling in line.
It's as if the sounds of Scotland itself can be heard from the rugged highlands thousands of miles across the ocean. There was once a time in early winter, usually the second week of December, when the rivers between Glengarry and Montreal froze over. It was then when Glengarians came into Montreal from their highland settlements. They arrived in a great procession of sleighs to bring the year's harvest for sale and to meet their clansmen. The familiar sounds of the ringing bells would be heard a long way off. The arrival of the sleighs from Glengarry would be the morning talk at the breakfast tables of Montreal. It signified a time for enjoyment, a time to meet up with old friends and acquaintances. The people of the area have long been the subject matter of legends and literature. Big Rory McLennan, a man of unusual gifts and versatility, was probably the best in the world at throwing the hammer. Father Yon and Father Gauthier coached when Alexandria teams and the natives from St. Regis played an outstanding brand of box lacrosse back in the 30s. Two writers have helped define the Glengarry character. Mrs. James T. Smith, writing as Dorothy Dumbrell, was a resident of the area for 50 years and produced some of Canada's best remembered literature. She wrote about the relationships between the two Glengarry cultures, Scottish and French. Ralph Connor was born in Glengarry County in 1861 as Charles William Gordon and had a full-time career as a Presbyterian minister. The story of his father's life became the basis for his best-known book, The Man from Glengarry. The early shantymen and river drivers, synonymous with bush life in the first half of the 19th century, were the brawny Glengarians. Connor gives us an early view of lumbering activity. A wild and colorful life was the lumberman's, full of danger and adventure, making the square timber, collecting the great sticks into rafts, breaking up jams, and running the rapids. Another kind of challenge for Glengarians was the confusion of similar names. At one time, there were 500 MacDonalds living in Alexandria. The postmaster insisted that some of them spell their names differently to make his job just a little less bewildering. According to physical size, occupations, hobbies, and the like, nicknames were put into use. Probably the most notorious character was Alan McCrae, an itinerant cooper better known as Alan the Dogs. There was also Bully Jump the Weaver, Windy McDougal, Rory the Little Widow, and Donald Big John the Post, Ice Cream Katie, Little Malcolm the Snuff, 3 Cups of Tea McDonald, Johnny Two Thumbs, Dribbling Duncan, Archie the Buffalo, Big Angus the Hog, Boil Away Kennedy, More Soup Farquhar, and Rory Back of the Swamp. From its earliest days, Glengarry County and the town of Alexandria have been places where people have formed their own rules of life. They have been not just a random grouping of people, but a nation in the fullest sense of the word.
Many towns that I savor, like my hometown that I favor, that old place down the long road that I'm traveling to. There's the jokes at the barber, told by Cleve from the hardware, about the stories that always make the news. Our town, wherever I may roam, I'll always have a place that I call home. Very plain to see, there'll always be a part of you in me. I'll see the folks up on Main Street who will always take the time for a story over coffee at the old Five and Dime. The flag on our town hall through the years has flown free, a tribute to our hometown's history. Our town, wherever I may roam, I'll always have a place that I call home. Very plain to see, there'll always be a part of you in me. There'll always be a part of you in me. There'll always be a part